Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Smart Maritime Network Copenhagen conference. Apologize for the delay this morning in getting started. There's been some technical gremlins, probably unsurprisingly, since it's a first virtual attempt for us. This year we're trying to do a hybrid edition of the conference, a mix of socially distant physical event and digitally powered virtual event, mixing live sessions from some Danish-based speakers here in Copenhagen, alongside a range of international presenters that will be joining us online. My name is Rob O'Dwyer, the Chief Network Officer at Smart Maritime Network, and we're currently standing at the headquarters of Cobham SATCOM here in Copenhagen. Cobham is one of the founding members of our Smart Maritime Council and a sponsor of our annual public event series, and we're very grateful that they've kindly agreed to host a physical portion of today's event here at their facilities. As you're already aware, that as you're watching, we're running this conference within a virtual environment for the whole audience due to current restrictions, a first for us. So it's something, though, I'm sure that you're all used to this far into 2020. We would encourage you to try out the various features available in the virtual platform. You can chat with other attendees, you can check out the companies in the expo section and get in touch with them. Also, within the conference schedule, we have in the early afternoon a series of smaller online breakout sessions, be separate rooms with hosted interactive video discussions on a variety of topics. We think they're a great way of discussing some of the interesting issues going on in the industry with your peers in the maritime technology sector around the world. So we'd encourage you to get involved with the rest of the audience on the platform that way also in the afternoon. As you've already found out this morning, and we found out this morning, we're at the mercy of the internet and various technology systems that we're relying upon today, none of which were manufactured by any of our sponsors, I hasten to add. So we'll ask you to bear with us as we move along in case we have any short breaks or delays in transmission or any other technical difficulties. I will say any issues that you do experience, we will be blaming them on the mainstream fake news media, or perhaps we've been the victims of a sudden attack of a killer Danish mink here at the Cobham headquarters. Other than that, without any further ado, I thank you for your attention so far. Thank you for your patience in waiting for us to log in, and I will hand you over to our chairman for the physical portion of the day's activities, Mr. Peter Andersen, CEO of GTT Analytics. So Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Good morning and welcome to the 2020 Smart Maritime Network Conference in Copenhagen. What a different world it is today compared to the 2019 conference, which was held at the magnificent Axelborg Conference Center in central Copenhagen, concluding with a well-attended network reception at Gemüse Restaurant at Tivoli Gardens across from the conference venue. Things have definitely changed. My last appearance at a conference was in the morning of 11th of March this year, when I gave the welcome address at a conference here in Copenhagen on the maritime industry's transition to alternative fuels. In the evening, the Prime Minister announced the lockdown, and when I turned up the following morning to chair the Shipping Transformation Summit running concurrent with the main conference, more than half the delegates have fled Denmark, so as not to be locked down here. Thankfully, we have now somewhat adjusted to using virtual meeting technologies, enabling today's event to proceed. But I must confess that I look forward to the day when we can all meet again physically to network, to informally exchange views, and to discuss ideas face to face. You'll know the old curse, may you live in interesting times. However, volatility and disruption are great drivers of innovation. And there's one thing the world in general and the maritime domain in particular needs at this time. It is innovation at an accelerated pace to enable the vital supply chains that the maritime industry services so well to continue uninterrupted even during global pandemics and other similar disruptions. COVID-19 has emphasized the timeliness and importance of the Smart Maritime Network, whose stated goal is to provide a platform to promote the benefits of enhanced integration and data sharing among stakeholders within the maritime and transport and logistics sectors, informing and educating the industry on technological developments and innovations while providing wide opportunities for relationship building and knowledge sharing, That was quoted verbatim from the website. This, combined with the focus areas of the Smart Maritime Council, namely compatibility, standardization, and harmonization, are addressing fundamental enablers for integrated, or dare I say frictionless, supply chains, be it energy, commodities, or containerized products. The support for today's event testifies to the fact that the maritime sector is supporting these ambitions. The world of smart marine technology has not stood still during the last challenging month. DNV GL, for instance, launched a new chapter to its rules for ships classification, digital features. The new chapter was launched with 3 notations on the 28th of October and will enter into force on January the 1st, 2021. TerraPower, chaired by Bill Gates of Microsoft fame, has announced a new partnership with Michael Burr's Core Power, Orano, and Southern Company to develop molten salt reactor atomic technology to offer a clean energy alternative to today's carbon-based marine fuels. US-based autonomous vessel systems company Sea Machines Robotics have raised another 5 million, and the Norwegian research organization SINTEF and their partners, Singapore's Technology Center for Offshore and Marine, unveiled a new roadmap for autonomous shipping in Singapore. These were just some of the headline news from the past few weeks on Smart Maritime, and I apologize for any worthy news items not included in this list. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Kathy and Rob, who have managed to make this event possible in spite of massive, continuously changing challenges, including, as we would have expected, Sod's Law to take over in the last moments before we went live today. And also for kindly inviting me to chair the event, again, in spite of having seen me before. Now, before I hand over to our host, I'd just like to say, if you have any questions, please use the right-hand side of the stage part of the Hop-in application. You'll see the chat function there, and you can raise any questions there, which will go to the moderator and be passed on to the speaker at the right time. Now, let's get on with the program. First, I should like to thank our host, Cobham SATCOM, for providing us with the space for the live part of this event. As I'm sure that all of participants in this event will be aware, Cobham SATCOM is a leading provider of terrestrial and maritime satellite communication systems. And it's now my pleasure to invite Henrik Fyhn to open the proceedings. Henrik is Vice President and Product Line Director Maritime and has held senior commercial roles in communication companies, including Eurocom Industries, TDC, Infocall, and Motorola. Henrik, if you would like to take the stage, I would let Rob set up your slides.
Thank you very much, Peter. There we go. Thank you. So thank you very much, Peter, again, and welcome everybody to this conference. We are very excited about having the opportunity to host you all here in our offices in Lyngby. The picture on of the building is actually the building we are in right now. The weather is a little bit more gray than you see on the picture, but it's November here and it's getting a little bit colder. I have been given the opportunity to give you a very brief update on Cobham and where we are, not going into too many details. But as Peter mentioned, we are a manufacturer of satellite communication and radio communication for the maritime industry, and has been doing this since the 50s, and been the first manufacturer of maritime VHF, the first manufacturer of L-band terminals, and also the first manufacturer of VSAT and TVO products. On the land side, where we also do a lot of things, one of the things we move into now is tracker antennas, something that is very exciting because it will actually also bring new opportunities to the maritime industry in the future. As I said, we have a long history in the maritime industry. We have two very well recognized brands called Sailor and Seatel. The Sailor brand is coming out of Denmark, where we're in right now. The Seatel brand was started up in our facilities in Concord, California, where we still have R&D development and manufacturing as well. So we are one company, but located in many places around the world with engineers and technicians all over to develop and support products. What have happened this year was that earlier in January of this year, the entire Cobham was acquired by Advent International, which is a big private equity fund. They split us up, and we are now operating as a separate individual company, like most other companies are, with a board and everything. This is actually very, very positive for us. We have been giving the opportunity to reshape the way we do things and actually become much more profitable. But also more importantly, as Peter mentioned, that we actually are getting more resources to invest in R&D. That means that we are basically up 50-60% on R&D spent next year from this year alone. And this year is not a low year either. So it's very promising for us. We see a lot of opportunities coming out of this. One of the things that will be talked about later today by Jens Everling is one of the things we find very, very interesting. This is the new space race, as we call it internally. That is basically where we see a lot of new constellations, satellite constellations going into space and becoming available for users. A lot of them are for users on land, but they still give opportunities for on sea to use it for other things here as well. And there's still a lot of current constellations as they will continue to be there, but these new future capacity will actually bring a lot of new opportunities to the maritime industry, which we are very excited about enabling for the customers. What we are seeing also from the customers, or we experience from the customer point of view, is that as increased requirement for remote applications in all kinds of shapes. Not only for business operations and being better and smarter at what you're doing, but also for crew access to increase the welfare of the crew. But also because now with the COVID, we actually experience that as an increased requirement for it, because we see that ship owners will try to avoid to have too many people going on board the vessels and risk bringing on COVID to the vessel. So this is, of course, something that's accelerated the development we see and has been on the way for a long time, but now we just see it accelerate. So this was the opening statement from me, or welcoming statement. I thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to a very exciting conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henrik. It's a pleasure to be here. And I was just going through the chats, and thank you so much to everybody who have commented so far and who've had the patience to stay with us. It's brilliant. It's now my pleasure to invite Anette Dybdal Fenger from the Danish Maritime Authority to take the stage. Anette is Director of Business Intelligence and Development. Prior to joining the Danish Maritime Authority, she worked in a variety of roles for the Danish Business Agency and as a company tax law specialist at the Danish Ministry of Taxation. I might need some advice on that later on. But if I can hand over to Anette now, everything is ready for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I have to say my tax law is a little bit rusty, but if you have any questions about these issues that I'm going to talk about today, I'm more than willing to give any advice you might want. I'm excited to be here. even though there were a few issues. There was also some train issues this morning, I must say, but we're here and we are going to work through it. I've been asked what impact these times have on the digital development and also on this adoption of digital transformation. And as everybody knows, these are difficult times. There's a lot of change of daily routines. Also, the political focus has changed slightly. There's less room for innovation maybe in the political dialogue. There's also some financial strains in the maritime sector and also in the public sector and in a lot of countries globally. And also, of course, traveling restrictions, which are also taking their toll on the maritime sector. Shipping is global, and the whole idea of shipping is also that we have to travel, that ships have to move around, that the seafarers have to onboard and offboard the ships. They have to go home once in a while as well to take a leave and rest. And it is, of course, slightly complicated with all these COVID-19 restrictions. At the same time, in my opinion, we have to keep our focus on these parts of the digital transformation that actually could help the maritime industry. And one of our issues is, of course, to change the focus from paper and from actually meeting in person to digital interactions. And this is the essence of how we could, why it is still important to look into this area. So, of course, yes, we have all these restrictions. We have the difficulties that many companies in the sector have seen in the offboarding difficulties. We have some financial strains, and also as we all move from meetings in person into virtual platforms like today, also the cyber attack threats are always present, and we are definitely challenged in that area as well. But when you look to digital transformation, earlier this year, I was personally very worried about all these projects that we are having driving in the DMA. What the challenge of not being able to meet up physically and in person would have on the advancement and in following the plans. And to actually have a successful digital transformation. In IT, there are always problems. There are always challenges that occur out of the blue that you didn't plan for. And the one mean you have to solve these problems is communication. And if you can't communicate face-to-face, if you have a conflict of some sort, it is always going to be more difficult if you can't meet up in person. That physical relation, or well, maybe not physical, but meeting up and actually also being able to small talk and have a cup of coffee does make a difference when you, if you have some kind of conflict. So I was definitely worried earlier this year. When I look into my department that is doing most of the IT development and also business development in the DMA, it doesn't look that bad anymore. We are seeing a high level of engagement, of commitment from my co-workers, from everybody we work with. There's really, people are sticking together, they're taking on the challenges, and they know that they have to put in the extra mile to make this work. And I think it really pays off. I think also that in some areas we have actually seen that the shift from personal meetings to digital meetings have created a need for a better structure of following up with calls and making sure that everybody got it right, and maybe also putting down a little more of our deals in writing than we used to, and that is not a bad thing in IT development. So actually we are seeing that we are following the plans. In some areas we are actually a little bit ahead of time. So even though there might have been a change of focus, it hasn't all been bad. In the DMA, I think some of you might have seen this before. We have several strategic areas, and one of them is that we want to have a fully digital service concept. This means that our seafarers should be able to have access to all data concerning their crew certificates digitally, that is through a PC or their mobile phone also. They should have full control of their data, so that they could, in all these, in all areas, there's a lot of focus on GDPR and personal data protection. And the idea is that the seafarer himself owns his data, even though they're stored at the DMA, and you can consent to giving this data, giving access to this data to your employer, to other public authorities, but you're in full control. The idea is also that the data should travel instead of paper. So the data should be shared with the ship owner, the company. Also, the captain aboard the ship should access all these data, also the data concerning the ship certificates. And in the end, the idea is that the port state control officer should also have access to all data, so that the personal controls on board the ship should actually focus on safety aboard the ship and not on paperwork and red tape. That is the vision. And this is what we've been working on in several areas that I would like to show and share with you. We are about to launch right after New Year our new mobile app for seafarers, which makes it possible to do basically everything concerning crew certificates through a mobile phone. You can bring all the data from your certificates with you on the phone, so you don't have to use the paper anymore. You can still, if you want to, it's kind of like airplane tickets. If you want to bring a paper version, you can always do a printout and bring that for safety as well. And I'm thinking that there might be a slow integration. Some people might never get used to not bringing paper, and some people will adapt to the app quickly. Of course, all the data that you can access through the app, you can always also access through a PC, so online, wherever you are in the world. So you can also get some messages, and the messages that you might get from the DMA would be more personalized, so you don't have to get all the messages, but the ones that are important for you. We're pretty excited about this app, actually. So you can see different issues. You can see all your certificates. You can see when you last embarked. You can actually sign on and off on your ships, and you can upload the confirmation of the seagoing time through your app as well. And the big question is, Denmark, I showed the picture before about the global setup in shipping, and Denmark is a pretty small country in the global context, and we could have a really nice system that just doesn't bring any value if the whole world doesn't accept it. So this is where we were looking into the area of acceptance globally, and how to actually bring people to know and trust the solutions that we are building in Denmark. So we did last year a proof of concept to show how this full digitalization could actually work in real life, to show how it was accessible around the clock, around the world as well. And we agreed with Maersk to do a voyage, a proof of concept voyage in the spring of 19 with the Mumbai Maersk. So what we did was we actually created a proof of concept where we brought a copy of all the data that could be controlled in a port state control. We digitalized that and showed a user interface, and then we actually agreed with a number of port state control officers along the voyage that they would do a control on paper and compare it to the digital versions in order to give some feedback and to actually tell us whether this was feasible. Would they ever be able to see themselves in this digital world and trust the data and not the paper? So of course there's also a we also wanted to bring attention to the solution, but most of all, we wanted to see, could this actually work in real life? So the Mumbai Maersk took off from Copenhagen last spring, and we had agreements with all the port states, or we stopped in Germany, Holland, Morocco, Singapore, South Korea, and China, I think. And we made these appointments with all the port state control officers, and they came on board and they checked the paper, and they also checked the web interface, or actually it's a big app, as you can see here on the screen. My colleagues here went along in the beginning and got a lot of feedback from all the port state control officers. And the way the proof of concept looked is like this. You can actually, through if you're a back-end officer in a ship owner company, you can access all this data before the ship takes off through an API to the Danish Maritime Authority, and you can see all these little boxes are people that have consented in our system that the employer can access their data. So you can always retract your consent. Might mean that you don't have a job anymore, but at least you have control over your data. Once you've given the consent, the company you work for can access your data, and you can sort of shift people in and out on different positions in the system, and the system will check for you if the seagoing requirements are met. You can also, in the bottom, you can see you can have some extra persons in case you might have somebody who's sick or who's offboarding in 4 weeks. You can drag and drop them into the correct positions and check that you're good to go for the whole voyage. And this is a little bit closer, so you can actually see here that you have the different names. Michael Brown here has a yellow dot saying that within I don't know if it's 6 or 8 weeks, his seagoing certificate might expire, so you want to draw attention to that. If you know that he's offboarding in 2 weeks, it's not going to be a problem. But if he's not, he's going to stay on board, you might want to talk to him and say, could you maybe renew this? And this can be done, of course, through a web service, but also through the app that is accessible for Michael. So he can actually, while he's at some port, he does need some kind of internet to renew the certificate, but he can pay, he can order it, and he can get it digitally straight away. So you are out of this situation where you actually have to apply with us, and somebody is printing something in the DMA that somebody has to pick up and maybe fly to Manila or wherever the ship is going to be in port the next time. So a lot more efficient here. And also you can click on Michael Brown and see actually what is the problem here. We can see it's 32 days away from expiration. So, and if you want to see the actual certificate, you can also click on the certificate and see the details on it. And there's a look that is very similar to what you have in paper today. This is also the version that you can print. And of course, it is not only the medical certificate, but also every other certificate that is issued in the DMA, and also both for manning or the personnel, the crew, and the ship certificates. So that was one part of the digital service concept. One of the others is the ship. And of course, if you want to talk about the ship, you have to start with the registration. And a few years ago, we started our project with digital ship registration. And this is actually the picture that you still see on our webpage. I think all these paper forms, and it's actually like that. It's not even an old picture. We are still handling everything in paper when you want to register a ship in the Danish Maritime Authority. But that is not going to be like that for a long time. We are going to change it. So the whole process about registering a ship and also registering mortgages and deeds and all kinds of nationality, getting the certificates will also be fully digital. So the idea is, instead of, you know, that even The trading of ships today is pretty much it can be very global. You can have the actual ship in one country. You can have owners and banks and registers that have to be annulled in many countries, and you have to agree. And today this is actually done by often either paying an intermediary or meeting up in the same room in person. And the idea is that this meeting and all the paperwork, and sometimes you also have to get the paperwork flown in from different countries, is going to be digital from the start to the beginning. So you apply digitally, it is processed here. If you want to get a ship surveyor out to make sure that the measurements of the ship is okay, you can also, he can confirm or change measurements digitally, and also the output is going to be digital. So instead of having paper on the one end and the other end, you have a digital ship register. You have the data concerning all these certificates and ownership and mortgages digitally as well. It's the same idea that we know that it might take some time to adapt to this, so you can always do a printout of your certificates of all the documents that are accessible digitally. But if you want to make go by the data, it is possible as well. And then, of course, the big question is the cooperation with other public authorities, with the port sale control officers, with courts all over the world, and banks. And this has been quite an issue. How do we make sure that the stuff we're making in Denmark is accepted in the whole world? So we've been contacting a lot of other authorities. We've been in touch with the legal systems in different countries, with the courts, saying, would you be able to seize a ship on just by looking at these digital transcripts, or what would you need to make this work in real life? And we have a group of globally orientated, but mostly Danish in the first run stakeholders that are following this project very closely and are invited into to comment on the look and feel of the system, and also on the end products that they have to work with in real life. So we are very excited to go on with that project, and it's going to be launched next year as well. So once you have all this data, I was talking about the cyber threats before, and of course it is slightly more vulnerable if the DMA is suddenly attacked, cyber attacked. It would be a big problem if all Danish ships were seized in every harbor globally over the world. So we were looking from the beginning into some way that we could secure this shared data. We need people to trust the data that is coming from the DMA. We want to make sure that it's not changed after we actually issue the data, and we want to make sure that people can see that it has been issued by the DMA and not by somebody else. And we were looking into blockchain in this area. We started out with the ship registration, but now we are actually broadening the picture so that we are looking to blockchain as a way of securing all the data that we might share. So this is from the ship registration, it is the certificates concerning the ship, and also the crew certificates. All data that we are sharing are going to be secured by this blockchain version or system. So the idea is that when you have the data in our database, you don't want to put this data, or we don't want to put it into the blockchain, because there's a lot of GDPR issues about never being able to withdraw the data that is once put into the blockchain. So what we're doing is we're not sharing the actual data, but we are sharing a digital fingerprint, a hashed value of the data in this permissioned blockchain network that is going to be run only by public authorities. So the idea is that the data in the database is secured in the blockchain, not that the data is actually in the blockchain and all the ledgers that are going to be all around the world. So the blockchain is serving as a proof of data validity and also of the integrity. There's a lot of people working in blockchain that say it's completely safe and can never be tampered with. We chose the kind of a different way of looking at it, saying maybe this is the case now, but we feel safer building a system where you accept the risk that something might be tampered with, that there might be an attack that we can't see now would be possible, but it will be maybe next year or in 10 years. So the way we put it is that you get a warning. If somehow the data has been tampered with, if it has been changed, if somebody has issued data into the blockchain that is not us, even though it was, and also if there is some kind of delay, because you have to also make sure that the data that you can access has been refreshed or is actual. So you want to make sure that if normally we put out data every hour, suddenly if it goes 6 hours, you need also get the warning just to make sure that you should contact the DMA instead. So the global setup is that we share the data with other public authorities directly through APIs, and it is only the security that is underlying here in the blockchain network, and of course the user interface over here, where you have the courts, the persons, the ships, the government authorities, the banks, is strictly digital as well. They can, if you are one of these person out here, if you're maybe a court wants to seize a ship, or you're a postal control officer, and you look at some kind of either printed or digital version of, for instance, a certificate, you can always go to the validation service and you can check it and see whether it has been tampered with. So this is where you get a warning. It is actually a bit bigger now. You need a big warning if something has been tampered with. This is one of the first drafts. But the idea is that you get the information that you're pretty much used to. It has a lookalike that you're used to, but you get the warning, and you can see over here that it has been, it is secured by a blockchain. Also, if the blockchain should stop working, of course you will get it, the warning. So the next step is the end of the vision, that you should, once all this data is accessible, we want to share it globally. And we've been doing two proof of concepts, one in both in European corporations, the Once Only project, which is a proof of concept that gives online access to government authorities, or public authorities at least. And the idea is that once you have admitted data into, for instance, the DMA or other public authorities, you should be able to access it by calls from the entire union into through a gateway, basically. And the other proof of concept that we've also been looking into is more of a push proof of concept, where all the data concerning our ship certificates are transferred into a database of it's called TETIS in the European Maritime Safety Agency, EMSA. So that is the other way around the push transaction. But the idea is that there might be an idea, if you want to share data, you don't have APIs with every authority that would be interested in accessing the data, but instead of making some regional hotspots. So you have a European, maybe you have some Asian, North American hotspots where you transfer data to, and then it is made accessible and of course secured by possibly blockchain. So the future. What are we going to see? There's definitely some issues about still data protection. We have been focusing on the non-personal data and sharing those, the ship certificates, and not so much the personal yet. We can do it technically, but there are these issues about sharing data outside Europe, and we have to look into that as well. Of course, we're always looking to the cyber threats. Could there be any weak points in security? And of course, the third point we are looking very much into is how do we get this to become a global solution. We're looking into cooperation with several different port state authorities and also ship registers in order to test. We've done some tests with Norway on this a cooperation of the blockchain system, which went very smoothly, and we are also talking to other nations about cooperation. And I think we are going to do this by expanding little by little. It raises a lot of issues also about governance. How do we work together? What if somebody doesn't meet the safety regulation? Who decides the level of the safety regulations? What if you want to quit the network? There's a lot of questions that we're still not, we haven't found all the answers for, but that is what we are going to focus on in the coming years in order to get this data out and working and creating value. That was it.
Thank you, Anette. If you'd like to stay up here,
Yes,
because there's actually been
definitely.
quite a few questions coming in from the audience around the world. And having just been browsing through the chat, I can see a lot of people have been patiently waiting for us to kick off today, which is brilliant. Now, I will use the chairman's prerogative to ask a question of my own, which refers back both to your opening explanation about the crew change and the crew app, and what you closed off saying about international cooperation in the future. Is there any alignment on a high level that this is the way forward? I'm an old port agent. I've been handling crew changes all over the world. This is, as we know, a serious issue, particularly for the moment. But with alignment on using digital certificates, I think it could facilitate crew changes quite dramatically. So, what is the sort of the feedback from others on this?
Well, there's a lot of interest. I think the beauty of this idea is that it makes it easier for the seafarer. It makes it easier for the authority, but also for the port state control officers and the ship owners. So I think that is why we actually it has a future. Of course, we've been talking to our colleagues in EMSA. We've been talking to the Paris MOU, and we're talking to a lot of different authorities that are very positive and very interested in the solution. Of course, the next step is how do we get there? And in my opinion, it is by doing it and showing it. Yeah. And you can always bring the paper, and I think it's actually like that. Those airplane boarding tickets, boarding passes. Yes. Yeah. You have to get used to it. Yeah. And some people might never do. and of course, the issue is at some point, I think, you need to get a majority to say this is perfectly okay. But you might still meet someone in a corner of the world who says, I don't know, I didn't hear of that. And then you might need some kind of backup.
No, I completely understand that. But I'm pleased to hear that there definitely is interest in it from other parties. Questions from the audience here. I will take one that from an old colleague, Piers Henriksen, who asks, does the crew app reflect current data only, or is there access to full historical data on the crew app?
There's also, at least on the webpage, you have the full history. Okay. I'm not quite sure. I think there are also some history in the app. Right. But sometimes the app is a little slimmer.
I know. It should be lightweight.
And also, of course, because there are the connectivity issues, you have the offline version. Yeah. So you can download, and then you have the date. But you can also always update if you are connected.
Okay. Cool. Right. The next one is from Klaus Nemtsov out in Singapore. And since I don't have affiliations from the chat, I will just mention names here. Klaus asked, was the development of the app done in-house, or was it done on a contract, or was it the startup that came up with a great idea?
The idea was in-house. and we talked to a lot of ship owners saying, would this actually be of interest?
Yeah.
But the actually development was done on a contract. Yeah.
Another old colleague, again, I'm not giving any affiliation here, is asking, how do you handle the strict Schengen regulations for on and off signing of crew members with the app? Because one thing is that you have the maritime administrations agreeing on it. Schengen has proven a bit of a complication at times. I remember that from my own agency days as well.
On the registration or the actual off and on boarding?
The actual on and off boarding, where you need the immigration authorities involvement as well.
I'm on thin ice here.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
But if you would like an answer, you can write me and I'll get the right persons to answer
Excellent.
you.
Yes, but I hope you heard Anette's answer there. I'm sure you know how to contact her. Julie is asking, is the certificate as shown in the app ship certificate? I take it we're talking about here.
If by a deep link it's you think of like a PDF version of it in the system, it is definitely linked to our system, but it is data based.
It's data-based. It's not an image. There's no link to an image.
The printable version is actually a PDF, but it is the design and the data combined.
Okay.
So it's data-based.
Makes sense to me. Yep, I hope that answers your question. And then we have one from Lina Karkov, who says, Denmark has an open data strategy. Do you plan to make the data on ships available to businesses to build new digital products?
It is definitely the strategy. Right now we're struggling a little bit with the personal data, but we're looking into anonymization. But yes.
I think this was specifically about the ships, and having been a member of the Aquasis editorial board myself, I know that there's a massive hunger for this type of data in a digital format.
It is definitely our plan. Yeah. I would very much like it. Of course, we have to make sure that it is safe. Yeah. But yes,
appreciate
definitely.
That. Those were the questions that I managed to take down. I don't know whether anybody here. Questions are coming here. More, it is from Frederik Lerke Tornø asked, will you be sharing this development as open source for other flag states for a quicker global adoption?
I don't know if I can call it open source. I don't think we're just going to put it out there, but we are definitely open to sharing the code and the experiences and everything. So yes.
Fantastic. Now,
I think the idea is the more that you use it, the more real life it's going to be.
The sharing of data, I think, is one of the critical drivers for the future of the industry. So I'm pleased to hear that you're on the same wagon there.
And Rob, I know we have had some interest from other flag states that are just beginning, but can actually skip some of the mistakes that we've been making and the middle stops. So definitely.
Excellent. Rob, any questions from you?
I think we have.
Are we going to a coffee break now?
Yes, we've caught up on time now, so I think maybe just we'll thank Anette. Really appreciate you and your patience this morning as we're getting ourselves set up. So yeah, we're ready for our virtual coffee break now. If you'd like to go get yourself a coffee wherever you are in the world, and then come back into the platform, interact with your peers, interact with the companies in there. I'm going to have an Irish coffee myself during the break after the difficulties we had this morning. So the next session will be 10:45 Copenhagen time with Ronald Spithout, and that session will be run by my colleague Kathy Hodge in London, all virtually. So stay tuned to see how that works out. So thank you for your attention, and please log in again 10:45 Copenhagen time for the next session on the stage. Thank you.
Thank you.